This week I'm going to talk about something a little bit different, but I'm going to use this lovely Q8 Sportback to show you. We're going to talk about car technology. Now this superb piece of German engineering is an E-Tron. That means it's electric. First of all, let's start at the front. You can see that the badge is solid, and that's in almost all brands. Behind that is the radar for the cruise control, and while we're here, there's one of the cameras. That's the front camera, and that's used for the 360-degree camera. There's also a sonar sensor, which is used for parking and so forth. And while we're at the front, LED lights. These are daytime running lights, and they form the signature of any car. These are the sensors and cameras for the rain sensing windscreen wipers and also the automatic braking to avoid having an accident. And because this is an electric car, it has a charging port. This is a fast charging port, and this can go, I think, up to about 170 kilowatts, but I'll check that and put it on the screen. The battery for all electric cars, or just about all electric cars, is under the floor. So what you're sitting on is the battery. And that's why having SUVs with batteries is such a bad idea. But anyway, smart locking and unlocking. Because I've got the key in my pocket, this car's now locked. To unlock it, I just slide my hand behind and pull the door. And because this is an Audi, that's on all four doors and also on the tailgate, which has smart swipe to open, locking, swipe to, oh, there you go. It took about 5 swipes, but eventually that worked. There's a tyre repair kit under there, which I'm not going to go into, but many new cars now don't carry a spare. They just have an inflation kit with some goo inside. You can see that there's my little e-bike that's folded up in there ready to go. And up here are the controls for the close and the close and lock. Something very handy at shopping centres. Also at the back is the rear camera. Now if you're wondering where the side cameras are on this car, it's where the side mirrors would be if we had any side mirrors. Under where the side mirrors would be is where the side camera is. Again, part of the 360-degree view, but this car has digital side mirrors, and it's just a little blade with a camera on it. And finally, if you're wondering what this thing is up here, it's the shark fin radio aerial. Doesn't get a whole lot of use these days because most people stream. Let's get in, and we start with the door, the driver's door. There's the lock and unlock buttons, the window controls and child lock buttons, and the seat memory buttons. On the dashboard, the controls for the lights, including the driving lights, the front fog lights, and the automatic headlights. Now when I start the car up, start that, everything fires into life. This is known by a bunch of different names: virtual dash, digital dash, driver dash, but it's just an LCD screen just like any other. And no tour would be complete without talking about the infotainment system, or MMI, multimedia interface, whatever your brand of car happens to call it. It's this rather brilliant tablet that's got a haptic feedback, so you touch the screen and you get a little bump under your finger. Yes, I'd like to use Apple CarPlay. And Apple CarPlay is one of the mirroring systems that will take your phone and put it onto the car's screen. I've just brought up my Google Maps. I prefer to use Google Maps simply by touching the Google button. And this then operates just like your mobile phone does. And down below in this car is another screen that controls other functions such as air conditioning and so forth. The all-important drive modes. This is a really interesting gear selector. There are no gears in an electric car, so this one uses this little billet of aluminium that's got a park button on the side and arrows to show you which direction. Now, depending on direction, it brings up your 360-degree camera. And there's one last thing that we want to talk about before we get on the road. I don't know if you can see it, but just about here is a 0 kilometers an hour, and that's a head-up display. So you can see that in my line of sight, I can see all of the driving data that I'd want to be able to get on the road. One pedal driving is something we use around town, is in this car activated by the paddles. And you'll find that that's the case with a lot of electric cars. If it's got paddles, that's what they're used for. We're using 25.5 kilowatt hours worth of battery. We've got about a 114 kilowatt hour battery. That's very big. Now, we silently glide off. The car slows down itself, though Audi is peculiar in that the one pedal driving won't stop the car completely, which is very strange. With most cars, most brands, it'll bring the car to a complete stop. Indicators, of course, are on the wrong side because this is an Audi. That's from Germany. This doesn't have any of those naff engine sounds which really irritate me. It's just pure raw power, and there's a lot of it. If I was to put the drive mode up into all-road, off-road, efficiency, comfort, and auto. Going to leave it in comfort. Because quite frankly, this is not the sort of car that you want to rush. Cars that have over-the-air updates have a concealed SIM card inside the car itself, which is, at least for the short term, paid for by the car company. Once the grace period is over, you have to pay for that yourself if you want to continue the series of things that it provides, updates and services and so forth. This is where the display is for the digital mirror outside. Honestly, it's terribly placed. And it'll indicate, and I can see that I'm indicating there. Now, because this is a digital screen, it also is where the blind spot monitor is displayed, and it's just a little yellow kind of ring around the outside. It isn't naturally where I'd look. I don't know if I'd get used to it after a period of time, but yes. The ride in comfort in this car is fantastic. So let's touch on active suspension, which this car has. An active suspension is a rather expensive option. Oh, by the way, the digital mirrors are a $3,500 option. Crikey. The active suspension changes the dampers while you're driving. That's a good thing. It can make it very comfortable and cruisy and soft for highway, but it can firm it up when you want to go into corners. Parking, even with the 360-degree camera, in this car isn't so easy because of those digital mirrors, and I actually scraped an alloy, which I was not very proud of. Lane keep assist and lane centering. It uses cameras and radars, in some cases LiDARs and what have you, to look at the road ahead and to see what is around you. Trucks, obstacles, stationary, sometimes day and night, bikes, kids. Lane centering, which I will put on now. All right, so I've got this set at the speed limit. The auto steering is on. Everything is set to go, so this car is steering itself. One of the other technologies then looks at making sure that I'm paying attention. There is no such thing as a driverless car, certainly not in Australia. You can feel the steering wheel gently moving under your hands. All you have to do is guide it. But like with all of these things, including the automated parking, which this car also has, the driver's in charge, and it makes decisions I probably wouldn't. The blind spot monitor also works with the active steering, and it stops you from changing lanes if there's someone beside you that you haven't seen. The steering will try and guide you back into the lane. It says no. Auto braking is probably the best thing since sliced bread. In this car it works both forward and backwards, so it won't let you back into anything and it won't let you drive into anything. The good thing about the active cruise control is that it is distance dependent, so it will keep you from the car in front. The audio system in this particular car is absolutely banging. It is brilliant. Some cars have active sound deadening, called a whole bunch of different names, and it uses a microphone to sample the noise in the cabin and play back the opposite wave, which cancels it out. That makes the cabins especially quiet. This car is like a ghost. Also, the driver monitor in some cars, it will detect if the person has become, for whatever reason, unconscious. This car will stop. It will give the seatbelt a couple of tugs. If none of that works, if you still are unconscious, the car will pull over into the closest lane to the footpath and stop. And it can do that autonomously. It's not something that you'd want to rely on a car to do simply because, as I said, cars aren't necessarily going to make the best decision. And it may well still be parked in a live lane, but it's better than you running into something